Welcome, everyone. I'm just waiting for a few more people to enter the webinar room. All right, everyone, welcome to a webinar to introduce the graduate programs in sociology at the University of Calgary. My name is Ariel Ducey. I'm an associate professor in the department, and I am the graduate program director. And for the webinar today, I am joined by Dr. Matt Patterson, my colleague in the department and an associate professor, and two of our amazing graduate students, Alhan Yazdani, who is a master's candidate, and Pedro Naziri, who is a PhD candidate, both in the Department of Sociology. So welcome, we're delighted to have you here. You can feel free to put questions in the Q&A while we're talking, but if we don't see the questions or get to them during the presentation itself, we have allotted plenty of time at the end of the presentation to look at your questions and go through them and make sure that they're all addressed. And at that point, I'll stop sharing slides and we can all see each other, or you can see us a little bit better. In addition, I want to let you know that this presentation will be recorded and placed on YouTube. It takes about a week for that to happen. So there are some details on these slides, but if they go too quickly and you feel like you missed some details or you want to go back and have a look at the slides more closely, you will be able to do that in about a week, and we'll send you an email with the information for where you can find the recording of the webinar. All right, so to get started, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge that we are speaking to you today from the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Right, so today we are going to talk about a number of things. We're going to do a quick overview first about a graduate degree in sociology and why you should consider going into graduate school in sociology. Then we'll talk about our department and the University of Calgary. We'll talk about Calgary as a place to live and work. And then we'll present details on our three graduate programs, on the admissions process, on funding, on the details of how they work. Then Alhan and Pedro are going to speak to you about life as a sociology graduate student in our program. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. So briefly, the graduate programs in sociology at the University of Calgary are three. We have a PhD program, which is designed to be completed in 4 years, a thesis-based Masters of Arts program, which is designed to be completed in 20 months, and a course-based Masters of Arts program, which is designed to be completed in 12 months. The course-based Masters program is brand new. If there is enough interest in this program, we'll be able to start running it in fall 2022. And we will certainly run it starting in fall 2023. So I will speak a bit more about the course-based program later in the presentation, but if you have any particular questions about this, because it's new, feel free to ask us during the question and answer session. So why a graduate degree in sociology? These are the major skills and competencies you will acquire as a graduate student in our department. Of course, advanced knowledge of sociological theories, concepts, and approaches. We hope that you all choose to join our department because of your love of sociology. We have a love of sociology, and it comes through, I think, in all of our teaching and research and our contact with students. In addition, you'll acquire advanced knowledge of qualitative and quantitative research methods, strong communication skills using written, oral, visual, or digital forms, understanding of ethical research, skill and knowledge for engaged citizenship, global awareness, understanding of causes and forms of inequality, inequity, and research and thinking skills to make a difference. These are skills that are in demand. Graduates of sociology programs do well in diverse labor markets and workplaces. And it's interesting, you will hardly ever find a job advertisement for a sociologist if you're looking through the want ads or you're looking on websites, but you will find many jobs that value the skills that people with advanced training in sociology can bring to those positions. And if you come to our program to do graduate studies in sociology, we will support you, as well as the Faculty of Graduate Studies, in learning how to present yourself and make these skills apparent to employers if you choose to pursue that route, as well as in applications for scholarships or future study if you choose to do that. So just to give you a sense of our program quickly before I go into the details later, in the sociology program, our courses tend to be of three types. We have substantive courses in a variety of topics, and I've listed some of them here. We have courses in research methods, and recently we've offered specialized courses in interviews and observations and mixed methods research. And we have courses on social statistics, as well as courses in the core sociological theories of our discipline. When you're looking at our websites and materials, and as you're thinking about our program, keep in mind that graduate courses are those courses at the 600 or 700 level. Our courses run for 12-week terms in the fall and winter. We also have compressed terms in the spring and summer. And graduate courses typically meet for just under 3 hours per week, and they're organized as seminars. They tend to be quite small, anywhere from 4 to 12 students, and very much oriented around student discussion and participation. If you want to look at some of the courses that we've offered in our graduate program in previous years, and even look through some of the course outlines, which tells you what the workload is like, what the readings are like, they're all on our website at the address listed at the bottom of the slide. I also want to point out to you that the median incomes of sociology graduates for five years after graduation are meaningfully higher for students who have a master's or a doctoral degree in sociology than those who have a bachelor's degree. These income premiums for graduate degrees in sociology are comparable to those for graduates of master's programs in other fields in the social sciences and humanities. So there's a meaningful difference in the earning potential of people who have graduate degrees in sociology. And this is data that we've taken from recent reports from Statistics Canada, cited below if you want to do further research and investigation about this. Now, to give you a further sense of our program and what it's like, I want to go through a series of slides that highlight some accomplishments of our recent alumni. This is just to give you a glimpse of some of our alumni. It is by no means an exhaustive list of our alumni, nor does it include all the many wonderful things some of our alumni have gone on to do. If you want to know more information about our alumni, the website that I've listed here contains a list of our recent alumni, including their thesis topics, in some cases when available, the jobs and careers that they've gone on to. So it's just to give you a glimpse. Please look at this other information on the website. And these are going to go, the slides on each of the alumni that we're going to highlight will just be up for about 10 seconds, just enough for you to get an impression of the kinds of work that people have gone into after our program. It won't be enough time for you to read every single word, but if you would like to come back and see the details, I urge you to watch the recording or access it next week when it's on YouTube. So as these go up, I just want to say a couple of general things. I think you'll see from this small sample of some of the things that our graduate students have done, that our graduate students have gone on to work in academia, they've gone on to work in research positions, they've taken managerial roles, roles in planning, roles in development, roles in city politics, right? And these roles can be in the public, the private, or the nonprofit sector. Okay, why the University of Calgary? Over to my colleague, Matt Patterson. Matt is an expert in cities and urban life, and he put this slide together and is going to talk more about living in Calgary later. Matt.
Thanks. I mean, one thing you should consider when you're considering a university for graduate training is the amount of just research activity that's going on, not only in the department itself, but in other places in the university. So here I want to call attention to the fact that the University of Calgary is part of the U15, that's the 15 major research universities in Canada, and founded in 1966. It is by far the youngest of the major research universities. So it's had this kind of meteoric rise over the past 50 years. It's ranked 6th place in Canada for both attracting research funding and for Canada Research Chairs. It's a large university. It has 14 faculties, including a med school, law school, business school, education school, architecture school, and over 1,800 academic staff. So again, when thinking about opportunities for collaboration and working in a kind of interdisciplinary setting, a lot of sociologists in our department work with the med school and the business school and the education school, etc. In terms of students, it's the 9th largest university with 26,000 undergrads and 6,000 graduate students. And the campus itself is 200 hectares, lots of different amenities, Olympic class, athletic facilities as a legacy of the 1988 Olympics here, pubs, restaurants, a major library, an LRT station, and many other things.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. I want to say too, it's interesting, our new president, President Macaulay, has placed a strong emphasis on wanting to increase the number of graduate students that we have in the University of Calgary. So I think there's going to be a lot of effort and resources put toward trying to increase our graduate students and also improve the experience for graduate students at the University of Calgary and the support they receive. So resources and training for graduate students at the University of Calgary are extensive. What I have on this slide is just a short sample of some of those resources and training supports that are available. In my experience, I think the sort of university entities and organizations that we have that provide support to students are incredibly innovative and world-class in the work that they do. Through the Faculty of Graduate Studies, there are a whole series of workshops that are free to graduate students called My Grad Skills. Just looking at the upcoming workshops that they're offering a workshop on introducing students to qualitative data analysis in vivo, which is a program that many of us who do qualitative data analysis in sociology use. It's a very valuable skill. They have a workshop on healthy thinking. They have a research on building your social media brand. And then they also have a whole set of workshops around building career skills and making your skills visible and marketable. The Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning has an entire series of courses for graduate students on learning to teach and learning to be research assistants. They have these courses for faculty members as well that we can take advantage of. It's a truly innovative place, and they have a beautiful new building near the Students' Union. The Student Wellness Service also offers medical care and mental health support. They have workshops on topics like motivation and procrastination, which probably many of us should take at some point or another. So there's lots of support for graduate students at the University of Calgary. Now, I also want to just highlight, when you're thinking about why the University of Calgary, I want to highlight the depth and breadth of the faculty members in our department in terms of their research. So what I'm about to show you is not a complete list of the department members that you could work with, or a complete list of the research and accomplishments of the faculty members I'm highlighting here. But this is a sample that shows you some of the current things our faculty members are engaged in and gives you a bit of more detail about what we do than what you might find on our websites. But if you want to know about everyone in the department, which I urge you to do, please see our complete faculty profiles at the website I've provided here. So as we go through these slides, I just want to highlight a couple of things verbally while you're sort of reading and getting a sense of our faculty members. I think if you look at these slides, what you'll see are a couple of different things. You'll see that we have faculty members who are often doing research that is international in scope. We have faculty members who are using a variety of research techniques and often cutting edge research techniques. And that can be qualitative research methods, quantitative methods, archival research, and even in some cases, creative and digital forms of research methods. Many of the researchers in the Department of Sociology are doing work that involves community organizations and community members. Many of our researchers are doing research that have implications for policy, for improving social services and institutions. And many of our researchers are looking at issues that are contemporary and urgent in nature. They have to do with things that are happening in the here and now, in our current context and our current social moment. And you'll also see, even from this brief sample, that the researchers in the Department of Sociology look at a variety of empirical topics in the social world. And if you look at the complete profiles on our website, you'll see there are even more topics than this that are included under the umbrella of this department. So we represent a great breadth of expertise and then a great depth of expertise. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Matt Patterson, to talk about living in Calgary.
Great, thanks very much. As a born and raised Torontonian myself, I know that the city of Calgary carries a lot of cultural baggage, a lot of stereotypes: cowboys, oil companies, conservative politicians. So what I would like to do in the next couple minutes is maybe provide you with a little bit more of a well-rounded understanding of the city, which is an incredibly large city and a very diverse city. So it does have cowboys and conservative politicians and oil companies, but it has a lot more. Dr. Ducey, if you want to flip one slide ahead, I'll share some of these things. So Calgary overtook actually Toronto and Vancouver on the Economist's list of most livable cities in the world. I think it was 5th place in the world and 1st place in North America. And really, as a Torontonian, I found that the city has offered me the kind of urban lifestyle that I was looking for in Toronto. But as you know, those of you who are familiar with places like Toronto and Vancouver know, is becoming increasingly inaccessible, right, and unaffordable. Some things about Calgary you may not know: it's home to North America's largest LRT system, one of the most extensive bicycle networks, both through our network of recreational pathways as well as on-street bike lanes. Geographically, the city is located at the confluence of these two major rivers, the Bow River, which you see in this image here, and the Elbow River. And at the meeting point of these two very different landscapes, the Rocky Mountains to the west and the Canadian prairies to the east. In fact, literally different sides of the cities are either flat or incredibly hilly, depending. So a few demographic points on the next slide. Calgary is a city of 1.2 million. That makes it the 3rd largest municipality in Canada. But it's a very young city with a median age of 37. It's also an incredibly diverse city. More than 1 in 3 Calgarians is a person of color. 3% of the city's population are Indigenous people, and 31% of Calgarians are immigrants. There's just dozens of languages spoken in the city. I've listed the most spoken languages, non-official languages here on this slide, which you can see. And it also has a diversity in terms of its economy, which is, again, not something that people necessarily think of when they think of the city. They think of the oil industry. But here I've listed the top 4 employers, and oil and gas is not actually among them. So we have health and social services, a sector that many of our graduates go on to work in, 14% of the labor force. Science and technical services, 11%, retail, 10%, and then what we call in urban studies, fire, finance, insurance, and real estate is 10%. Life in Calgary, when people think of Calgary as a tourist destination, they usually think of that because it is located next to mountains, but actually there's a lot going on in the city. There's incredible music and arts festivals, which you can see here, really interesting neighborhoods, like one of the neighborhoods I've been studying, Chinatown, which I have an image here taken by one of my students in central Calgary. Incredible food and bar scene, and a lot of really interesting architecture. Another one of my areas of research is iconic architecture, and so here you see the very iconic new central library in the city. But of course, there is also things outside the city that attract people and that make life worth living here. So an hour to the west and you hit the Rocky Mountains. You see Moraine Lake here in Banff National Park, and there's the town of Banff. An hour to the east and you are in a totally different landscape, almost desert-like Alberta Badlands with these weird rock formations and cactuses, and it's like being in a Clint Eastwood movie or something. I think that's it. I'll hand it back to Dr. Ducey.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. Okay, so next, now I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the details of our programs. So I'm going to go through this somewhat quickly. I know some of you may be here for these details, so keep in mind this is to give you an overview. All of this information is available on various websites for the university, but if you can't find anything, do get in touch. The general email is socigrad@ucalgary.ca, and I or Allison Schmall, our graduate program advisor, will get back to you. And I'll say that email address again at the end. So the MA program, there are two MA programs now. There's a thesis-based program and a course-based program. So the course-based program involves slightly more courses, 8 rather than 5. For both programs, you have to take 1 course in theory, 1 course in methods, and 1 course in statistics. For the thesis-based program, you take 2 electives. For the course-based program, you take 3 electives. And then for the MA thesis, it's a 20-month program. So you spend the final 8 to 10 months of your program writing a thesis under the supervision of an individual faculty member. And usually that thesis is the content of it and how it's done and its research design is very much determined by the student. So there's a certain degree of autonomy to pursue an independent research project, but it is independent. In the course-based program, students also have to complete a major research component, but it's under the aegis of 2 courses that are completed in spring and summer of the first year. And those 2 courses count toward the total 8 courses that you have to do in this program. So there will be a major research component, but that research component is going to be more structured, and options for the students will be presented ahead of time, whereas the thesis you would have more liberty to pursue a project of your own choosing. So either program is suitable if you intend to go onto a PhD, or if you intend to go into the labor market after you complete your MA. Almost all graduate programs in sociology in Canada have a course-based program, and all PhD programs in sociology in Canada do consider the completion of a course-based program with a major research component sufficient preparation for the PhD. So in the Q&A, if you have more questions about these, I'm happy to answer. For this year, the only application program that is going to be identifiable when you go in to apply is the thesis-based program. But once you apply for the thesis-based program, there will be a place for you to indicate if you're interested in the course-based program as well. And if you are, we'll consider you for admission for both. And we'll reach out to you before we decide which program to admit you to, if we have enough students to start the course-based program in the fall. The PhD program involves 6 courses. There's a big typo on this, I'm sorry. The PhD program time to completion is 4 years. Ignore the 20 months at the bottom. The PhD program is 6 courses plus a 3-unit seminar in professional sociology. Those courses are usually completed within the first year. Occasionally a student has to take an additional course in the first semester of the second year. And the PhD program timeline is to complete all courses in that first year, find a supervisor at the end of the first year, begin work on a doctoral thesis proposal, have that thesis proposal completed and improved towards the beginning of the fall of the second year. And then in the fall of the second year, students start preparing for their comprehensive examinations, their field of study exam, which contains both a written and oral component. And when that is passed, students in the PhD program are officially advanced to candidacy and begin work on their thesis, which the program allots 2 years for acquiring ethics approval, data gathering, thesis writing, and then any final revisions and defense during the final months of that 4th year. For admissions, for the MA program and the PhD programs, we look for a minimum grade point average of 3.5 in the last 2 years of coursework, or the most recent 60 credits. If you are an applicant with extenuating or atypical circumstances around GPA, or really any of our admissions criteria, please do feel free to reach out. We do consider students whose situations are not typical, and I am happy to provide feedback and guidance if you're one of those students ahead of you applying to our program. And you can use the email socigrad@ucalgary.ca. I'm going to skip ahead to the PhD admissions program for the sake of time. For the PhD admissions, I should say too, for the master's program and the PhD, we do expect applicants who have a previous degree in sociology or in a closely related field with significant sociological content. We do admit students who don't have a previous degree in sociology, but then we'll want to look closely at the student's record in terms of whether they've done previous coursework related to sociology, or they have professional experience that is relevant to a graduate degree in sociology, and whether they convey in the application a clear indication that they understand what it might mean to go into sociology and why that's the right choice for them. So we have some advice here too about your approach you should take to finding a supervisor. For PhD program admissions, you don't need to have a supervisor identified before applying to the program. Identifying the supervisor happens during the first year of the program, but it is very important that you have a sense and know that there are people in our program who could act as your supervisor because of their areas of expertise, and that there are a couple of additional people who look like they would be possible committee members for PhD students. So the application portal is open now. Applications are due on December 15th. Have a look at all the details on the website here, future students and how to apply. We meet and make our admissions decisions usually in late January and communicate those decisions in February or March. International applicants have to take into consideration a few other things, and there's a special site here at the Faculty of Graduate Studies site for international students, which I urge international students to look at carefully. And if they have any more questions, to reach out to at that Socigrad email address. When you're applying to our program, the components of the application are official transcripts, a statement of intent, and here's a description of what that statement of intent should look like, and we suggest. There's no rules around this, but these are the typical sorts of things that we see in statements of intent. 2 letters of reference and a writing sample, and the writing sample cannot be co-authored. If you have written a previous thesis, an honors thesis or a master's thesis, we generally expect that that thesis or a good chunk of that thesis is what you're going to submit as your writing sample. And we recommend that the writing sample have some sociological content. Funding. So funding in our graduate program, the funding offer is made when we send an offer of admission. So if you are admitted to our program, you will also receive a funding offer at the same time, and you will be able to decide on the basis of that funding offer whether you want to enter our program. So you'll know right away what funding you've been offered, and you can think through the financial implications of our programs. Funding is offered on a competitive basis. Our funding packages are competitive with other schools, and I've listed here what our typical funding packages look like. I want to point out that most of our funding comes in the form of teaching assistantships. So for instance, a teaching assistant position during one semester, say the fall term, pays $8,894 and involves 204 hours of work. And this is as serving as a teaching assistant for 1 or more undergraduate classes in the Department of Sociology. So I want to point out that our funding packages, right, a good deal of those funding packages are in a sense paid to you to do work on behalf of the department and our program. We also have funding in the form of scholarships, and some students will also receive funding or take on additional employment as research assistants. And I will provide details about how that works with the funding offer. All students must apply for scholarships for which they're eligible. Students can and should apply for scholarships prior to being accepted into the program. I can't emphasize this strongly enough. It is to your advantage for your well-being in graduate school to apply for these scholarships now, even while you're in the process of applying for admission and don't know yet if you'll be accepted, because many students are admitted and then are awarded scholarships through the university scholarship competition within a few months of receiving that notification of admission. Oops, I went the wrong direction. Okay, costs. So bear in mind that students are responsible for paying tuition and fees. So that comes out of your scholarship funding. Tuition and fees are different for students who are Canadians or permanent residents. They're in one category, and international students are in another category. The links here provide details about tuition and fee costs at the University of Calgary. I will point out that the tuition structure for the thesis and course-based MA programs are different, but the overall costs for those two programs in total, the 20-month thesis program and the 12-month course-based program are very similar. Students are also responsible for making living arrangements when they come to the University of Calgary, and the graduate studies site at the University of Calgary has a lot of information on options for this. And if you are admitted and come to our program, we'll put you in touch with current students, right? And we'll help you start building those networks right away and getting in touch with faculty members and students who can help you if you need assistance in making the transition to life in Canada, life in Alberta, life in Calgary, whatever the case may be. All right, now I'm going to turn this over to Pedram Naziri and Alhan Yazdani, who are going to talk about the experience of being graduate students in our program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juicy. All right, maybe if we can just go to the next slide and then, thank you. Sure. Awesome, thank you so much. So hi everyone, I'm Alhan Yazdani and I'm a second-year MA student. I have a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology as well. I'm currently part of the Sociology Graduate Student Caucus, otherwise known as the SGSC, and I hold the positions of the GSRS Event Coordinator, which is the Graduate Symposium Conference, and I'm also the Communication Representative. I also sit on a few editorial boards, and I'm part of the Arts Appeal Committee, just among a few other committees as well. And my interest mainly focuses on restorative justice, program effectiveness, youth crime and their experiences, serial killers, as you can see with the picture of Ted Bundy here, and then of course, corrections and courts. And as a profession, once I graduate, I hope to be working soon as a crime analyst, a crime scene investigator, or a homicide detective. So before we get there, I wanted to just kind of give everyone a quick overview of what the past 2 years of the MA program has looked like for me so far. Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Juicy. So within the first year, I mainly attended classes where, of course, it was just over Zoom. So some of the courses were like statistics, research methods, just to name a few of them. I also met with my supervisor, Dr. Dorjan, to just narrow down my research idea. And of course, I also had a teaching assistant position. And just to overview of some of my responsibilities, I had about 2 hours of office hours each week. I also had to answer student questions over emails or during office hours, of course. And then I also provided guidance to students for their assignments. And then just closer to the end of the semester, my main focus kind of shifted on, for my TA position, that just kind of focused on grading students' papers. And then again, during the first year, I also applied for various scholarships and attended conferences. Some of the conferences are mandatory and to attend, so such as the GSRS, other conferences such as the CSA, the peer-to-peer, the ISA or the ASA, and others are based on your own interest to attend. So there's usually an email that gets sent around by the department and they call for your abstract and you basically go from there. And then of course, also super exciting, I got the key to my office for the first year as well. And then I also stayed in touch with my mentor, who is available to guide you throughout the program as well. And then, of course, yeah, just maybe the slide before. No worries. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, and then during the spring and summer, it was, so I had finished my courses. I basically worked on my research. I met more regularly with Dr. Dorjan, who is again my supervisor. I started writing my prospectus and getting it approved by my supervisor, as well as Dr. Juicy as the GDP of the program. My thesis focuses just a kind of quick overview. So it focuses on the experience of those involved in restorative justice program in the Atlantics right now. Specifically, I focus on how restorative justice programs are implemented, the experience of supporters such as parents or police officers, understanding the experiences of youth within these programs, as well as how staff are trained within these programs. During the spring semester, I also had a teaching assistant position, and then more closely to the summer semester, I mainly focused on finalizing my code book for my research and just kind of putting everything together. And then, as I mentioned previously, I got more involved in different committees, such as the Sociology Graduate Student Caucus, where again, I'm the symposium event coordinator right now, as well as the communication representative. And then as well with the other committees, I basically attended meetings and just carried out work that is specific to my teaching position. And then, of course, second year. So right now I'm in the first semester. So just involvement in the committees continued. Teaching assistant position continued as well. And then meeting with my supervisor more often as well. So you can see Dr. Dorjan on the right, and then Dr. Rose Ricciardelli, who I also work closely as well. So I'm just basically, again, finalizing some of my nitty-gritty code book stuff and then beginning to write, hopefully, within the next month or two. As a kind of bonus, I'm also currently auditing a course called Cyber Risk, Youth and Crime, which Dr. Dorjan is teaching as well. And then hopefully by next semester, I will be finalizing my written work, so my thesis, and then getting ready for my exam/defense. And of course, getting ready for my graduation as well. So putting everything together and reaching that final step. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to me, and I will pass it on to Pedram Nassiri as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pedram, and I'm entering into the 5th year of my doctoral degree at the University of Calgary. I completed my master's at the University of Toronto in 2017 with the intent of studying the difficulties queer Muslims face in asylum seeking processes in Canada owing to their unique social location. Since 2017, I have been working on my doctoral degree at the University of Calgary, and I originally began this degree in the Department of Anthropology and Archaeology, and then recently converted or transferred, is another word we use, into the Department of Sociology in January of 2020. My current supervisor, I should say, is Dr. Falavi Banerjee, whom we saw in the faculty profiles there. Just very quickly then, for my doctoral research, which should be popping up on the next slide in a bit here, what I'm looking at is the increasing prevalence of multiple partner families in Canada and their specific intersections with ongoing race, gender, class formation projects. I'm particularly interested in the tension that Canada's legal and political spheres are facing in advancing the rights of multiple partner families in the wake of colonial projects that have historically and contemporarily marked multiple partner families as the intimate practices of racialized others. In addition to this doctoral research, I've also had the opportunity to engage in another research project on the social resilience of polyamorous families. This project has been externally funded in part by the Sociologists for Women in Society, and with any luck, this will be completed in December, January of this year. So there's always opportunities for engaging in multiple different types of research projects at the doctoral level, in addition, if you so choose, to the research project that you have as a PhD student. And some of that was noted earlier with regards to the research assistantships that one can apply for as well. So the work, which brings me to the next slide, of a sociology PhD student or a graduate student is incredibly varied. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about it is that no 2 days will ever look really the same, because the amount of work or the different tasks or the different committees and so forth that I get to work with will always differ. So this slide sort of captures just a small snapshot of one of the weeks that I recently experienced, right? Monday was full of meetings, meeting with my supervisor, meeting with students for a course that I'm lecturing, SGSC meeting. So that's the brilliant student council that we have here. Faculty orientation, and then preparing my Tuesday lecture, right? So Monday is all about meetings, it seemed to be that week. The next day was all about lecturing, right? And preparing and meeting with students and working with my lecture materials. On Wednesday, I actually got to get into the project that I'm working on. So this was the best day for me, because now I get to return to the project that I love, and I got to transcribe my data. One thing that is quite common when you're a graduate student is you'll meet with your supervisor on a regular basis. And my supervisor has many different supervisees. So she's currently overseeing, I believe, 3 PhDs and several MAs as well. And so they're part of what I've listed here as my academic kin, right? They're part of my family. And so we tend to meet as a big group and share in the successes, in the challenges of the week or the month, and just come together in a collective, solidarity-filled moment where we can brainstorm different scenarios, what have you. Thursday, conference, getting ready to submit an abstract for a paper, getting ready for a conference, getting a U Today article ready, which will appear in the school's paper, and then just prepping lecture. Interestingly as well, because of the committees that the U of C provides us the opportunities to sit on, there was an emergency meeting in order to draft a statement for a particular situation that was arriving for the benefit of the students. I know the emergency statement here does sound a bit ominous, but it was actually for the benefit of trans students. And there's a super exciting particular avenue that the university is taking to better the lives of trans students at the University of Calgary. So that's fantastic. So this was a day of, a day of excitement, really. Friday, community conferences, preparation for that, consultation with adoption options. The really interesting thing that I've found when transitioning into the PhD graduate program is that I'm actually being sought out a little bit more for the expertise that I'm honing. And that's brilliant, like that's fascinating that people will actually sort of come up to me and say, hey, can we have your input on this particular social phenomenon? And so you'll start to get, approached by other groups and organizations and so forth. And then Saturday was a return to my research with a 3-hour conversation of one of my research participants. So it's incredibly varied. There is really no 2 days that will be similar in your graduate program. And for someone who, really enjoys being a part of different things, it's a real joy. It's absolutely fantastic. You'll never grow bored. For the academic side of things, this is probably what we're all familiar with, right? Or what you might expect, at least. There's a lot of reading and writing, whether this is in the classroom as you work to complete your course requirements, or in a coffee shop pre-COVID, right? Or an online writing jam, as we saw in the previous, where you work to fine-tune a paper or a book chapter or something. While I've definitely grown to appreciate the greater joy of that writing, the most enjoyable part of academia, for me specifically, are conferences. There's just something really special and invigorating about meeting other, and I'm going to use the term in a loving way, nerds, just meeting other nerds who share them, similar passions as you do, either for a very niche topic or something as general as a commitment to bettering the lives of others through social justice initiatives and programs, right? It's just beautiful when you come together around a specific theme and you're working and brainstorming and, overcoming challenges, developing conversations, and the friendships that materialize out of these are honestly some of the most special and nearest and dearest to my heart. It's just phenomenal. That moves me to teaching. This is a relatively new adventure for me. And when it comes to this, again, as Dr. Ducey mentioned earlier, the Taylor Institute of Teaching and Learning is a wonderful resource. And so this has really helped prep me to enter into the world of academia and life as an educator and an instructor. When it comes to the administrative side of things, I like to dabble in a lot of different things. One doesn't have to as a graduate student at all, right? If you want to buckle down and work on your research, you're more than welcome to. So just on the next slide there, I've sort of listed some of the different types of committees and programs that I'm working with, both inside and outside of the university. But again, this isn't a requirement at all. It's purely because I love what I do. And I love being a part of it as much as possible. And then lastly, just the advocacy work. At the end of the day, when it comes back to the breadth of academia, you can get into so many different things, right? And one of the things that I really love doing is taking critical social theory, critical sociological theory, and applying it to various challenges or injustices in the everyday world to try and make the world a better place. So yeah, that's just a little snapshot of my everyday life as a sociology PhD student. So thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Pedram. Thank you, Alhan. So that brings our presentation to a close. So I am going to close the slide so that you can see us a little bit better. And we're happy to stay around now for another 10, 15 minutes, answer any questions that you might have. So while you're composing those and getting them into the Q&A section, please ask anything. I wanted to ask, I wanted to highlight too, Pedram, that every year graduate students organize a graduate student research conference. That was the GSRS, if I have the acronym correctly on your second to last slide, Pedram. And last year, Pedram was the lead organizer for that, had a lot of help from other graduate students, but the lead organizer for that conference, and it was online, and it was a marvelous event. And students participated from around Canada, and our first year students gave papers, our fourth year students gave papers, and the quality was exceptional. And it was such a wonderful opportunity to see what all our students were doing and engage with them and ask questions and provide feedback. So there are things like that happening in our department. Come on, ask some questions. Pedram, what's your writing jam? That was on your morning every day.
So I try to schedule some writing.
Is that you? Is that you by yourself jamming?
No. So one of the, I think it's just a very special thing about this department is that the community aspect that we have as graduate students is just phenomenal. So I meet regularly as part of a collective where from students of the department will come together and we will set up goals for our writing, and then we just spend 1 to 2 hours working on a project. And so we just jam together in this like collective online community. Nice. It's really cool.
That's such a good way to do writing. Okay, so we have the first question that's come in is there a benefit to the MA thesis over the MA course base when considering a PhD down the road? What makes the two courses distinct in terms of benefits? So this is interesting. They are both perfectly sufficient for the PhD program. I think the factors that are going to determine whether the course-based program or the thesis-based MA program are best for you are not related to whether you're going to go into a PhD. So sometimes you might have a student who's very certain that they want to do a PhD and they want to make their way into a PhD program as quickly as possible. Like that might be one factor. And those students might opt for the course program because it's more structured. It's going to be done in 20 months. They might even be applying for PhD programs the fall of their first year in the master's program. Dr. Matt Patterson pursued that path through the University of Toronto when he was a graduate student. Other students might want, for a variety of reasons, to spend more time at the master's level, to do a project that's more independent and in-depth, to get firsthand experience with every single stage of designing and creating a research project. So when you do a thesis, you lead the creation of an ethics application, which is its own kind of skill that takes time to learn to do well and efficiently. So it's not about whether you want to go into a PhD program. I think it's about whether you want or feel you need to do a thesis and issues of time. But the course-based program also has a major research component. I don't know, anything else you want to add to that, Matt?
I was going to add, if you know that you want to do a PhD, this is the career path that you've chosen for yourself, and you want to get into the PhD as quickly as possible, yeah, applications go in for the PhD program was early January, late December, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So you would be applying basically at the end of your first term in the MA to start the following fall. So that would be, you would be someone who already knows going into the MA that you want to do the PhD. And as Professor Ducey noted, I took a one-year MA program at the University of Toronto, where that is exactly what happens. People go into the MA knowing that they want to continue on to the PhD. If you want to find out a little bit about what it's like to do your own research, to do a thesis, before you commit to a longer PhD degree, then you might want to do the 2-year program with the thesis, gain some experience doing research, and then you can apply for the PhD from the 2-year program. You'll have a year and a half kind of under your belt at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And let me say too, I think for students who aren't certain whether they want to go on to a PhD, or who are certain that they don't want to go on to a PhD, the pros, for them too, either option can have some benefits. So sometimes students who particularly want to go into the world of research after their master's student, maybe take someone like Jill DeGrood, who we highlighted in the alumni section, right? They might find that doing that independent research is really excellent preparation for developing specific research skills and being able to market those. But we also do hope to organize the course-based program so that students can acquire very meaningful and specific skills, especially around research methods as a part of that program, but also to be able to carry forth into the world a strong sense of what it means to think sociologically and to do research and to communicate about the value of sociology, which is tremendous in many sectors. Okay, another question. Is there a part-time option for the MA? And if so, what would that look like? So the University of Calgary Faculty of Graduate Studies does not yet have official part-time options for graduate study. They are looking at that, and I hope that the official options for doing that come on board soon. And I think with the course-based program, it will especially lend itself to that we could see a situation where people complete that course-based program over a slightly longer period. Perhaps they're working full-time, right? And they only want to take 1 or 2 courses a term rather than 3. So there have been situations in which part-time study in course-based programs has been arranged on a case-by-case basis. So I would just say, if you're someone for whom that option is strongly appealing to you, or the only option, get in touch with me. Don't let the fact that we don't have an official part-time program lead to you not applying. Get in touch with me and we'll do some exploration around that. But I do think official part-time options will be available fairly soon. The GPA requirement for the MA, this is the third question. The minimum GPA requirement for the sociology department is 3.5. We do consider sometimes applications for students whose GPA is less than that. So if it's less than that, but you would still want to apply and think you have a case to make for why you would be successful in our program, even without that GPA, please get in touch with me. Students who would like to pursue the course-based, which begins in fall 22, when the application will be open. So we are in a transition year. So it's a bit awkward, but we're going to work through it and make it work. When you apply this year, there's only going to be one master's program in sociology listed, and that is the thesis program. So select that and apply to it. When you get into the application, there will be a question where we will ask you if you are interested in the course-based option. And if you say yes, we will consider you for admission to the course-based as well as the thesis-based. And then if we have enough students to start the course-based program in the fall, we will do that. And then when we make our admissions decisions, I will get in touch with students about their preferences and what we think the best track for them would be for admissions. And if you feel strongly that the course-based option is the only option for you for next year, I would say get in touch with me and communicate that to me, or put it in your statement of intent as well. If you know for sure that you don't want to do the thesis-based program, indicate that in your statement of intent and get in touch with me. So it's kind of an awkward transition, but we should be able to make it work. to what extent do learners have the opportunity to select their own research question that they will pursue as a thesis? Do students select the topic, or is the topic selected by the supervisor? Okay, so let's focus on the thesis program for a second. For the master's thesis program and the PhD thesis program, students have a great deal of latitude in selecting their research question and their thesis topic. Alhan's nodding, so if you want to join in, feel free. Often what happens is that students find they need to refine or adjust their topic based on the expertise of the supervisor that they choose and they end up working with. So it's important that you have some flexibility coming into this program. And sometimes there are supervisors who are more directive than others and will say to students, like, I really think you should do this topic, and this is the most important topic. And other supervisors won't. So it varies and it's negotiated. But in general, when you're in a thesis program, master's or PhD, students are in the driver's seat, as it were, for what they do research on. Alhan.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So it's nice that you have that flexibility. Like, for example, with mine, initially what I was wanting to focus on, it was getting trickier with, being in COVID and being in a pandemic, basically. It was tricky to get access to people you could interview. So, the topic it still is what I originally wanted to research, but it has shifted from basically who we've interviewed. So it went from me interviewing people personally to Dr. Rose Ricciardelli being super nice and providing me with her data. So you have that flexibility, but I would say in the driver's seat to how you want to kind of navigate through that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in some programs, graduate students basically work under the research project of their supervisor that they do. Their thesis becomes just a part of someone's larger research project. That's typically not the case in our program. So it's typically up to the student to decide what topic they want to pursue. Come up with a research question, and students can choose their own supervisor. Of course, the supervisor has to agree to take on a student, and there usually is a kind of negotiation around refining the question, especially because the supervisor typically knows the literature, knows the area, knows the methods. But the student is generally in the driver's seat in the sense that you get to choose the supervisor you want to work with. So you find someone who's an expert on the subject matter that you're interested in.
Yeah, and for the course-based program as well, students are going to have some flexibility in terms of what they do for that major research project, but it will be more structured, and it will give students options for types of papers or topics or research methods that are going to be, in our view, especially beneficial to them, and also make it a product that is achievable in that 20 months and that can and will get done over the course of spring and summer terms in 2 classes.
Yes. So there's less autonomy in the course space with the research paper. You have much more autonomy with the thesis, which you have a whole year to do.
And it's interesting. We'll work with students, especially when they come into the program, about making sure they're in the right path. Some students really thrive with more structure, and some students thrive with less. And we'll try to accommodate everybody with their different approaches and preferences. Okay, is the GPA used for application from your most recent degree? Yes. If you're asking that because you have an unusual or atypical situation, get in touch with me. Sometimes students' most recent degree is not the one that's most relevant to whether they're going to succeed in a graduate program in sociology. And if that's the case, we want to see all those transcripts and we want to be able to take that into account. So, if your most recent degree is not the one that's most relevant to whether you can succeed in graduate study, and it's going to raise some challenges for you in terms of our GPA requirements for admission, please reach out and get in touch with me. socigrad@ucalgary.ca. All right. Well, I wish we could have seen you all. And I look forward to possibly hearing from some of you in the future, and we'll be in touch. We'll let you know when the video is going to be live. on YouTube. And thank you all for
There's
attending.
one more question, actually, I think.
Oh yeah, can we talk a little bit more about the sample of written work? Yes. Do you have a specific question about it? You just want some general advice about it? You know, I think because it's I would say because it's a graduate program, because it's a graduate program in sociology, two things. I mean, it's better if that writing sample is academic or sort of scholarly, and it's better if that writing sample and somehow conveys why you would be a good fit for a sociology program. There could be circumstances in which students, it might be in their interest to submit a writing sample that is different. Maybe somebody who's been in the professional world for some time and has written in a different style for years, or has policy reports or something that they've produced. I could see that as an option for submitting the writing sample. But in general, you want to pick something that kind of highlights your curiosity, your ability to ask questions, your ability to think critically. Those would be the general points.
Yeah, I'll just add, as someone who's served on the admissions committee before, when I'm looking at applications, I think, can I tell from the application that I think the student can, if they're applying for a thesis, like the MA Thesis Program or the PhD, am I relatively confident that they can pull this off, right? Can they come up with a topic on their own, learn the literature to know, how they can contribute to the academic literature, design a methodology and actually conduct the research, and then write up something at the end. Mm-hmm. So there's a variety of different types of academic papers. There's more theoretical papers, there's empirical papers, there's things that are literature review. But really what you want to do is demonstrate through your written sample that you are comfortable communicating to a scholarly audience, right, about kind of topics that are of interest to sociological researchers.
And that's especially important at the PhD level.
Mm-hmm. And
I would say at the master's level, we don't expect students to know exactly what they want to research from the beginning. And it does change over time. And that happens at the PhD level too, but I think especially at the master's level. So, in the statement of intent, I think you want to show that you do have things that you're genuinely curious about and want to do research on. But what you put in the statement of intent is not a contract. You don't necessarily have to do that exact thing when you come to the program. But like, give us a sense of who you are, of your mind, of your passions, of your curiosity, of the problems you want to solve in the world. And why you think doing that in a sociology program is the right path. All right. Thank you, everybody. I see some thank yous coming in. Thank you for attending. And do feel free to get in touch. Thank you, Pedram and Dr. Patterson and Alhan, and thank you, Calvin, for all the organization work that you've done on this. And take care, everybody.